Only $3,200, and you act all high and mighty. Since we got married, I've been paying the $3,200 monthly mortgage all by myself, and with one single comment. My husband completely dismissed my efforts. This happened during one of our regular family meetings. Suddenly, my husband stood up and slammed the table. His mother, who was sitting next to him, followed suit. "You don't even do housework. You parasite. Get out." Both of them were so worked up that there was no way to have a rational discussion or talk about improvements. It didn't seem to reflect on anything from the past either. So, I just smiled at them and said, "Sure, with pleasure." This year marks our 3rd year of marriage. Both of us work, and everything went smoothly until we got married. My husband used to live with his mother-in-law, but when we got married, we decided to buy a condo for the two of us. "Are you sure it's okay to leave your mother alone in the house?" "It's fine. She has my father's inheritance and her pension, and I'll visit her now and then." I felt a bit guilty towards his mother-in-law, but I was happy to live alone with my husband, so I agreed. Originally, we planned to split living expenses, but my husband made a proposal. I thought about it, and splitting everything every time might be tough. "How about you just transfer the $3,200 mortgage to my account monthly?" "What do you mean?" "I'll cover all other living expenses from our joint account." At first, I hesitated, but since the account would also cover dining out, hospital visits, and travel, and we'd save for the future and our kids, I accepted. It meant my husband would bear a larger burden, so I was grateful. Due to our work schedules, we don't spend much time together. But we decided to have regular family meetings to manage our joint account and plan trips, which was fun. But then, about a year after our marriage, my husband stopped putting money into the joint account without any notice. At first, I thought he just forgot, but even after 2 months, nothing was deposited. As our family meeting day approached, I raised the issue. "James, about the living expenses, haven't you forgotten to deposit them?" "Oh, did I? I'll put it in all at once next time, so please cover for now." But it's been 3 months. I've been covering, but we're running out, and I've had to dip into our savings. I asked him again to deposit the money, but he was reluctant. "We live in a house under my name. If you don't like it, shouldn't you be the one to leave?" "What are you talking about? You just bought new golf gear and a car. It's not like you don't have money." "Of course not." "Then what is it? This isn't like you, and I'm worried." I was shocked by what he said next. Around the time he stopped depositing money, he had quit his job. He got angry as we talked about it. "I quit because the company promoted someone less competent before me." "What about your next job?" "I'm talented, so I'll get a good job quickly." "But it's been 3 months. Maybe you should lower your standards a bit." "No way. I'll rejoin a top company and prove them wrong." "But I can't handle all the expenses alone." "You're working too, so you can cover for a bit, can't you?" I knew my husband was proud, but I didn't expect this. Seeing him so agitated, I decided to wait until he found a job. "Please try to find a new job soon, okay? More importantly, Lisa, make sure you don't forget to transfer the $3,200 mortgage to my account every month. You're practically a parasite, slacking off on housework as a housewife." My husband's cutting words deeply pierced my heart. It was the first time I realized he could hurt someone so much without any guilt. During every family meeting, I carefully chose my words to encourage him to work, but he kept making excuses like, "There aren't any good companies," or "They're not a good fit for me," and never got a job. After work, instead of relaxing, I'd spend my time stressing over my husband. Then, he said something unbelievable. "I let you live in my house, so even if I don't work, there's no problem if you cover the living expenses, right?" He laughed, pretending it was a joke, but I could tell from his eyes that he wasn't joking. A year passed without him finding a job. One day, I came home to find the hallway filled with boxes. I hurriedly asked my husband, who was always at home, what was going on. Mom's having a hard time living alone, so I decided to let her stay here. She couldn't manage after I moved out. So it's only right to take care of her. What? You didn't tell me anything about this. This is my house, so I don't need to consult you. You should be grateful you're even living here. I was too stunned to respond. I hoped my mother-in-law's presence would change things. But a few days later, after working late, I came home to find my mother-in-law comfortably settled in. Oh, the name-only wife who doesn't do any housework is home late again. When my mother-in-law saw me come home exhausted, these were the first words out of her mouth. From then on, she would make snide remarks at every opportunity. Once, when my husband complained that our condo was smaller than his childhood home, she said, "If it weren't for someone not doing their part, James could have relaxed at my house." Another time, when I asked about the fast depletion of our joint account, "You don't do housework, so at least let him eat well. No wonder James has no motivation to work. You're a greedy wife, meddling with James' money." She said, "Despite my husband not contributing to living expenses, the joint account covered utilities, so I made sure to deposit enough. But after that incident, I only deposited enough to cover the month's bills." My mother-in-law was indulgent with my husband, believing everything he said. To her, I was the lazy wife who didn't do housework but demanded money, living in her son's house without gratitude. My husband still didn't get a job. Instead, he spent more time out with my mother-in-law after I reduced the account deposits. He even started borrowing money, spending more recklessly. My mother-in-law acted like she was doing housework, but she left the cleaning to a robot vacuum. Only did laundry for herself and my husband, and didn't even wash towels. Meals were either takeaway or deli. 3 months after my mother-in-law moved in, I continued paying the mortgage and living expenses. Reaching my limit, I called for a family meeting. I began by distributing documents showing our recent income and expenses, something I was accustomed to from work. From these documents, you can see that our current income isn't enough to sustain our expenses. What's the point of this petty display? My mother-in-law snapped. "I just want a constructive discussion about our future." "I get it. You don't have to repeat yourself. Can't you tolerate things until Mum settles in?" "Don't be so arrogant when you don't do any housework," my mother-in-law added. "It's been 3 months since she moved in, and I've been covering all the rent and living expenses," I said. With that, my husband slammed the table and stood up from the sofa. "You act all high and mighty over a mere $3,200. I'll pay when I find a job. Isn't this house under my son's name? No matter how much you pay, it's his money. If you hate it so much, leave my house. I'm talented, so I won't be in trouble without you. Mom will take care of the house." "Yes, get out, you parasite who doesn't do any housework." Seeing both of them glaring at me with their faces red, I realized there was no point in saying anything more. So I gave up trying to understand them at that moment, and simply smiled. "Sure, with pleasure." The words settled calmly within me. I realized I truly wanted this separation. My husband was stunned to see a genuine smile he hadn't seen in 2 years. "Well then, please sign this." "Why do you have that?" "You told me to leave if I didn't like it, so I got it. Signing it now will make your mother feel better, right?" My husband looked bewildered, but my mother-in-law couldn't hide her joy. As my husband reluctantly signed the divorce papers under his mother's urging, I took them while mentally planning my move and arranging movers. "I'll be out by the end of the month, so please be there on moving day. If you're leaving, that's no problem at all." My mother-in-law, usually reluctant to agree with me, was in high spirits for once. "Once the move is done, I'll submit the divorce papers, so don't worry." "Oh, you can be useful sometimes. Please do that." Ignoring my husband's attempt to say something, I continue discussing plans with my eager mother-in-law. This will be a relief. I left the room, internally agreeing with her parting words. On moving day, movers took my belongings and the furniture I had bought. Watching the household appliances being taken out, my mother-in-law snapped. "How much are you taking? Are you crazy? I bought all these with my own money. The receipts are in my name. I'm only taking what's mine." "So what? Everything in this house is obviously mine. If the house is yours because it's in your name, then the furniture with my name on the receipts is mine." My husband was speechless, unable to argue back. Ignoring my glaring mother-in-law, I instructed the movers to continue. "That's everything. Thank you for your work." "What is this? Almost nothing is left. I like that sofa, you know." "If you liked it so much, feel free to buy the same one. Oh, and from next month, I won't be paying for the mortgage or living expenses, so handle it yourselves." What are you saying? As my son's wife, you should support us until he finds a new job. You told me to leave, so I won't be paying any more. James won't agree. You can't just stop paying. Of course, you're supposed to pay the mortgage. You broke your promise to cover living expenses first. I don't have to keep my promise either. I just bought a new car. How can you stop paying suddenly? Don't you care about others? Yes, you've left the house almost empty. At least leave the money. Do you realize what you're saying? Aren't you embarrassed? Yelling in front of the movers. Noticing their raised voices, they lowered their tone in embarrassment. Well, it's hard to adjust suddenly. Can't you manage for a few more months? I've been covering for over a year. How many more months are you talking about? Please handle it yourselves. Don't be so cold. We're still married. Let's continue living together. I'll help with housework. It's easier here, right? You didn't do much housework. Meals were takeout, and I took out the trash. Also, we won't be married soon. Your mum eagerly had you sign this, remember? I left the house, leaving my husband and mother-in-law speechless as I showed them the divorce papers with a smile. After the divorce, I did not transfer the mortgage payment as declared. The account was maxed out due to the car purchase, so the mortgage went unpaid. Demand letters arrived, but my ex-husband ignored them, unable to pay. Eventually, a lump sum payment was required, which neither he nor his mother-in-law could afford. Had they consulted the bank when they first fell behind, they might have kept the house, but pride prevented them from doing so. As a result, the house was foreclosed, and both my ex-husband and mother-in-law were left with debt and blacklisted. My ex-husband couldn't get the elite job he wanted, and is now doing low-paid manual labor to pay off the debt. His mother-in-law's pension isn't enough, so she started an unfamiliar part-time job where even younger co-workers mock her for her incompetence. Despite their efforts, they struggle with debt, and my ex-husband recently asked if he could borrow just $1,000. Seeing him so timid, unlike his previous self, I just laughed and said, "I don't want to act all high and mighty over just $1,000, so no." And with that, I completely cut ties with them. Living alone again, I felt less stressed and was even complimented at work for being brighter. My softened demeanor recently led to an invitation from a popular boss to a dinner alone. Both personally and professionally, I'm looking forward to new beginnings.